Automotive News has just reported that electric car shipments to Europe have soared ahead of planned EU tariffs. In fact, they've increased by 61% versus the same month last year. That's a pretty big growth, 61%. Hello, my friends. Welcome to the channel. Great to have you with us. I'm Sam Evans. You're watching the Electric Viking. Now, I personally own one of the cars being sold in Europe right now. Haven't taken delivery yet. That'll happen in 2 weeks. This XPeng G6. And XPeng, one of the manufacturers that are taking on Tesla. The Tesla Model Y was the best-selling car, best-selling vehicle in Europe by a mile. In fact, it had 20% more sales, 25% more sales than the second-placed vehicle, period. Not necessarily an EV, but any kind of car. That was, I believe, a Volkswagen T-Roc or something like that. One of those cars you just don't remember because they're so boring and nondescript. Anyhow, Tesla Model Y was the best-selling car in September by a mile, by 25%. XPeng's G6 is priced at about the same price as a Tesla Model Y in Germany, in Norway, in Sweden. Pretty much every country, it's about the same price, but it does come with a higher standard of specification. Now, China actually exported well over 60,000 electric cars to the European Union in September. Those cars came from who? BYD, like I said, XPeng, NIO. NIO's sales in Europe have been a little bit disappointing, but they do have a big presence all across Europe. There's also companies like Leapmotor. Leapmotor are part owned now by Stellantis, and Stellantis are actually selling Leapmotors, or their Chinese EVs, in Europe under the Stellantis banner. In fact, I believe that Leapmotor will begin manufacturing vehicles potentially in Italy, basically kind of assembling them in order to avoid European tariffs. MG as well, they send a lot of cars. In fact, MG is the best-selling Chinese brand in Europe by a mile, sells at least 5 times more EVs every single month than BYD does across all of Europe. MG though, I mean, of course, a lot of Europeans believe MG is actually a European car brand. They believe it's British, even though it's sold to the SAIC Motor Group, Chinese state-owned company. I believe that was about 15 years ago, so quite a long time ago. People still think MG is that. But anyway, MG4 is one of the best-selling EVs in Europe, and so is, of course, some of other MG's vehicles, like the MG ZS. There's actually a replacement for the MG ZS. There's an upgraded version of that vehicle now as well. So another company that is selling cars in Europe you might not have heard of is Chery. Chery sell their EVs in Europe. There is also big players in Europe that you probably don't hear about, especially you hear about some of these brands in Norway, like some of the more boutique brands from China. We also have a company called Nita. Nita sell EVs in China at incredibly low prices. They sell them as well in Europe. So what's interesting here is that the Chinese manufacturers, they are basically flooding the European car market, but China is hoping that these taxes on Chinese EVs will be repealed. And intriguingly, German manufacturers, BMW, Mercedes-Benz, the Volkswagen Group, Audi, Skoda, they are lobbying the European Union to basically remove these taxes. Why are they doing that? Well, because sales for these European car brands, they make more money selling cars in China than they do in Europe. So they're concerned that this is hurting them more than it's helping them. And honestly, the truth is that this is not hearsay. We've heard numerous times that these German automakers have said, no, we don't agree with these tariffs. We don't want them. This is not good for us. The Chinese government has responded to these tariffs. They have tried to negotiate with the European Union. That has not worked. Now they are saying that they will tax internal combustion, large internal combustion engine vehicles in China. Now, who buys large, expensive internal combustion engine vehicles? Well, who manufactures them? The main ones are, SUVs from Mercedes, from BMW, from Audi, these German brands. That's where they're making their big dollars. That's where their big profits come from. And China's saying, great, okay, we're going to tax them. Now, personally, I think that's a good thing. They should tax all internal combustion. And realistically, if you actually have a look at how hard it has become now in major cities like Shanghai and Beijing to buy an internal combustion engine vehicle and then register it, you can easily buy it. It's a piece of peanuts. If you've got the money, you can buy it. But getting it registered, that's extremely difficult and extremely expensive. So this enormous decline in sales of German cars in Europe is, It's inevitable. It's not going to rebound. There's no way for it to rebound because of how hard it is simply to register one of these internal combustion vehicles from a German automaker. It's just like, it's so difficult. Most people don't even bother trying. That's one of the things. The Chinese are incentivizing clean air. They're incentivizing companies to sell EVs and to a lesser extent, plug-in hybrids. Therefore, the profits these companies have seen, these German companies have seen, they will continue to fall. We've seen BMW sales fall by 30% in a single month alone. BMW sales continue to fall this year in China. Mercedes-Benz sales continue to fall. Audi sales continue to fall. They're all collapsing. I mean, Nissan sales are collapsing equally badly, but this is really bad for these German automakers because of how much profit that they make in China. So you can see now why these German car manufacturers are lobbying the European Union to repeal these tariffs. No matter what happens though, BYD plans to build car factories in places like Morocco, Turkey, and in Hungary as well, numerous places around and inside Europe where they will simply assemble their vehicles in order to get around these tariffs. And you can bet it'll happen. It'll happen really fast. When companies normally say, we're going to build a car factory, it takes them many years. BYD says that, and 12 months later, all of a sudden, you're like, holy hell, how do they do that? They're already selling cars from there. They do things at lightning speed. They're not the only Chinese manufacturer doing things at lightning speed. In fact, they all do things really fast. The head of Mercedes-Benz, the CEO, has mentioned that as well. BMW CEO has mentioned this as well. He's like, the Chinese are unbelievably fast. Even Elon Musk mentioned this. They move so quickly. So even though it sounds like these Chinese manufacturers who are selling their EVs in Europe are simply flooding the market right before they're about to be penalized, that's technically true. But all of them have a plan in place in order to get around these taxes, these tariffs. All of them will figure it out. And you can bet that they think that this is not that hard. They'll find a solution. The solutions are, of course, to build factories where they simply assemble their vehicles in Europe. Really, the key manufacturing all happens in China. They'll simply be assembling them in Europe, and a lot of them are planning on doing that. There's numerous factories now that are being planned to pop up all across Europe. So even though it appears as though Europe has protected itself from Chinese EVs, the truth is that actually it hasn't. Thanks for watching.